Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and it's the 31st of January 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So Barnabas here has put out a tweet talking about the Zhejiang public testnet that is going live tomorrow, the 1st of February at 3 p.m. UTC. So this is going to be the testnet for Shanghai and Capella, which will be triggered 6 days later at the epoch 1350. You'll be able to deposit validators, practice BLS change, and exit without risk, and all the links are here. So I did say that we would start getting these newer testnets spun up before we hopefully by the end of the month get the existing testnets forked over or are beginning to fork over here. And this is just the usual process that we go through when we do upgrades on the Ethereum network. So like any upgrade, you can, I guess, participate as well if you want by following this link here. I remember I talked about this even with the merge and other upgrades that have come prior, but just know that at any moment the testnet could fall over or something could happen. There could be a bug, and I mean that's the whole point, right, of the testnet. So don't expect anything long-lived here. The long-lived testnets, the two of them that are currently live, Sepolia and Girly, they will be forked over eventually, but obviously not now. We've got to do these kind of, I guess, like these new public testnets first, which are short-lived, then we'll do the long-lived ones. And it usually starts like that, right? There are like private dev nets and then like semi-public dev nets. Then there are these more, I guess, like private standalone test nets. And then you've got like the public test nets, the new ones. Then you have the long-lived public test nets forking over, and you have shadow forks all in between. So there's a lot of different testing that can be done and that is done. Obviously, withdrawals don't need as much testing as the merge did, nowhere near, right? But it's still good to test as much as we can to make sure that everything is running all well and good and all smoothly. So, as I said, if you're interested in participating in this, you can follow this link here, which I'll link in the YouTube description below for you to do so, and you can go check it out for yourself. All right, so Tony from the MEVBoost.pix website, I talk about him actually quite often on the refuel when it comes to MEV Boost things, has put out a new blog post talking about builders in the MEV Boost ecosystem here. Now, builders are, I guess, like one part of the MEV ecosystem that isn't talked about enough, I think. I talk a lot about the relayers. I talk a lot about MEV in general, obviously censorship and censoring relayers and uncensoring relayers and teams within that, like Flashbots and Blocks Route. But the builders themselves are obviously a crucial part of the whole MEV Boost ecosystem, and I think they may be one of the least understood parts of it. Now, if you are like I guess like most people and even me, and you don't know much about builders, then this is definitely a blog post for you to give a read. It's probably going to give you one of the best overviews of the builder ecosystem as it currently stands, how it all works, what builders actually are, what consequences they have for the network and all that good stuff there. The TLDR is basically that builders are the entity that essentially puts together these bundles or kind of like builds these bundles, so to speak, and they're built by the proposers, right? So you can see here in the builders section here, Tony writes, blocks can be built by the proposers, validators themselves, known as vanilla building, or by specialized entities that can extract MEV from the blocks they built. Now, this is obviously what happens with MEV Boost. And validators have the profitability from the MEV in their own blocks by participating in the proposer builder separation mechanism and outsourcing their block building responsibilities for some compensation. The block builders are specialized parties that have access to sophisticated transaction bundle ordering algorithms and proprietary order flows, which are transactions that are exclusively submitted to a single searcher/builder. And searchers are actually another, I guess, a thing that's misunderstood, and searchers and builders obviously overlap a lot, and they're pretty much the same thing, but that's another term you may have heard of when it comes to MEV. So you can see here, this is the key part. Validators can choose between vanilla building and using MEV Boost. The latter provides them access to the external block market, and for more information on MEV Boost, you can refer to this recent blog post, which this is what it's hyperlinked, and then there's more of an explanation here about how this all works. So highly recommend giving this blog post a read if you want to learn about this, and how builders affect the censorship resistance of Ethereum and how some of them censor, some of them don't, the reasons why they do, all that good stuff there, with numbers to support it, data to support it, so, and nice little graphs and things like that as well. So yeah, definitely go check this out. I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so Nixo here put together a tweet with two screenshots of two different forum posts. So, well, two of the same forum posts on different forums slash communities. So the first one is the vote that was, I guess, proposed back in July or June slash July of 2022, and it was titled, "Should Lido Consider Self-Limiting?" Now, this was basically brought on by the conversations at the time about how Lido had grown really, really quickly, became a really massive share of the Ethereum network, or I guess like the Ethereum staking network, and people were asking them, hey, or telling them, hey, you should soft signal and say that you'll basically self-limit to a certain percentage, and basically keep to that word. Now, at the time, I described this or talked about this a lot on the Refuel, and I basically said that I think that self-limiting, while it is a strong social signal, while it is, I guess, like a healthy social signal, it's not something that's really enforceable. And I also didn't think that Lido would go for this because of the fact of the matter is that Lido is obviously a for-profit business, and they are definitely not going to give up any potential future growth or profits just because we ask them to, so to speak. Now, I'm not going to talk about the implications of that when it comes to credible neutrality, the Ethereum network, the community, just general feelings on that. But you can see how against the community was. I mean, there was 80 million LDO that were against this and only 156,000 that were for this. Now, I don't know what the distribution of votes looked like here. I don't know if there were whale votes. I'm sure they were. But essentially, Lido voted not to self-limit, and as I said, like the main reason was because it didn't really make much sense to do that, given that Lido is a for-profit business, and yeah, that was that there. But then Nixo also shared the same, I guess, like post on the RocketPool forum, which is self-limiting RocketPool. Now, this is a very different vote, or I guess like very different result here. So this was posted only 2 days ago on January 29th, and will run till Feb 12th, but basically the current results are 1,500 votes in favor, no against, and no abstaining. Now, there are a couple reasons for this, and I think that one of the reasons is fairly obvious, and that is the fact that the RocketPool community is extremely different to the Lido community. They definitely are more values aligned with Ethereum. They definitely care about the health of the Ethereum beacon chain, and they care about decentralizing it as much as possible, obviously, because they took the hard road of building out RocketPool to be a decentralized staking pool instead of creating a centralized one. So that's the more obvious, I guess, reason, and we can all understand that. But in saying that, and you guys know I love RocketPool, but I think that we have to be a bit objective here. So the second reason that the RocketPool community can have an easier time saying that they're going to self-limit to some percentage, I think it was going to be like 15 or 20% or somewhere around there, is because RocketPool is not actually at that limit, right? And nowhere near that limit. They're at 2-point-something% right now of the total ETH staking market share. So it is, in turn, much easier for RocketPool to say that they're going to self-limit now, given that they are way below the actual limit that they're imposing. Whereas Lido is and was above that limit. Like if, let's say that Lido said, okay, we're going to self-limit to 20%, well, they are well above that limit. They're still around 29-30%, and back when the vote was happening, I think they were around 33-34%. So obviously for them, they would have to either actively try and kind of reduce their own market share, or basically limit deposits and just pause deposits until the market share goes down, and they can re-enable them. Now, that's obviously not a very great workable solution. It's not great for their business, and you can see the reasons why they voted against that. Whereas RocketPool, they don't have that issue. I mean, I'm hoping RocketPool grows to 20%, right? I mean, not really. I should say I'm hoping RocketPool grows as much as possible, but I don't think any one provider should have 20% of the market share anyway. But obviously, I'm hoping RocketPool grows. But it is much easier to say yes to self-limiting when you aren't even close to the limit, right? And I wonder what it would be like if RocketPool was in Lido's shoes. Like if RocketPool had 30% market share, would they still be open to limiting themselves to 20% or even to 30% and just like cutting out deposits? Would the RocketPool community want that? Because that would mean that the RPL token would be limited in its growth as well, just like the LDO token would be under the Lido kind of context there. So would that actually happen? I don't know. Like, I have faith that the RocketPool community definitely has a more longer term vision in place, and they definitely not it definitely values aligned with Ethereum Ethereum, of course, but at the same time, you just have to make assumptions. There's no way to know for sure. There's no way to know what discussions would happen. Different community members have different views on things. So while I think it's really positive that RocketPool is signaling that they're happy to self-limit, until they actually get to that limit or get anywhere near that limit, then I think it's a bit of how should I say it? A bit of an empty promise, so to speak, right? But anyway, as I said at the start, this is all just social signaling. This is not something that can be done at the kind of like smart contract level. Because, I should say that you could do it at the smart contract level, right? You could do it where it's automated, but it would require an Oracle input to know what the market share was at any given time, and that would actually introduce more trust into things, and that would become a centralized point of failure. So it kind of gets messy when you try to automate it and kind of like codify it, I should say. So it's definitely a subjective kind of soft signaling thing, and there's nothing, I guess, preventing the community from voting on a different percentage. So what would happen if they voted and said, okay, let's limit RocketPool to, or any service provider, to 15% market share, and then you reach 15%, you're like, oh wow, okay, now we have to pause and let our competitors gain market share against us, or we could raise that ceiling to like 20%. They could basically say, well, we're going to self-limit to 20% instead, and we're going to get that 5% growth in order to keep growing here. And you see how these conversations become quite murky, and they can become quite difficult as the further down you go, and they can actually lead to divisions in the community. So I'm curious to see how that plays out over the years. I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm just kind of talking about what could happen or what potentially could happen, and why these things aren't clear cut. Especially, as soon as you introduce subjectivity into things, as soon as you introduce humans' decision making into things, it starts getting extremely subjective, and it's not really something that you can reason about without having to make some pretty massive assumptions about how humans would act in those certain scenarios. But anyway, I'm going to leave that one at that. I'm interested to hear your opinions on this. Actually, if you want to share them, be sure to do so in the Discord channel. It's much easier to have a conversation there than it is in the YouTube comments. So head over to the Daily Gwei Discord channel. There's a link in the YouTube description if you want to discuss this stuff with me. I'm always open to discussing this because I think it's quite important. All right, so some big news out of the Obol Labs project today, or the Obol Network project today. So they launched two key initiatives for their community. The BR testnet, which is the second testnet to stress test their DVT technology with more than 5,000 validators globally, and an ambassador program to scale contributions to the Obol Labs mission, or the Obol Network mission here. Now, just a disclosure, I am an angel investor in Obol here, but they are definitely one of the teams that I'm most excited to see grow this year, because they'll be going live with their mainnet implementation post withdrawals, and they are going to lead, I believe, to a lot more security and decentralization of the Ethereum staking and / beacon chain ecosystem, which is going to be good for everyone. So as I said, this new testnet has launched already, and the goal is to test scaling deployments of this DVT. So scale it up as much as we can to over 5,000 validators. Obviously, we want it to be able to work with as many validators as possible, but we kind of scale it up as more testnets roll out here. And there's also an ambassador program that has gone live where Obol is looking for contribution to the adoption of DVT and the future security and decentralization of proof of stake. There are opportunities in content and engagement, technical and localization, with full details on this Notion doc, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. So again, another call out here. If you are looking for something to do, whether that be casually, part-time, full-time in crypto, there are always opportunities. These ambassador programs. Obol isn't the only team that has this ambassador program. There are plenty of other teams that do. But if you're someone who's passionate about Ethereum staking, passionate about everything got to do with staking and even potentially DVT technology, well, this is definitely something that you may be interested in. So as I said, I'll link all this in the YouTube description below, but great to see the Obol project making progress here, and I can't wait to see them go live on mainnet. All right, so I think the biggest news of the last 24 hours was this new project that came out of stealth called Sovereign. So they are calling themselves the Internet of Rollups, and they say here, Sovereign is an ecosystem of interoperable and scalable rollups that can run on any blockchain, and then they have a whole thread about why they are building this. Now, this isn't something that is exclusive to Ethereum. They do call out other data availability layers like Celestia in their blog post, and obviously anywhere that they can settle their data on, they're probably probably going to be open to doing so. But the reason why I think this is really cool is because it's something that I've been excited about and keeping my eye on for quite a while now. And there are a few projects doing this. I've mentioned Stacker Network before, and I've mentioned Optimism doing their optimistic chains before. But it's basically this idea of making it as easy to spin up a new rollup as possible and doing it in a modular way where these teams can basically spin up their rollup, choose where they want to put their proofs, their data availability, be able to spin up nodes, be able to choose if they want to be EVM compatible or not, or want to use another language or another virtual machine or anything of the sort. So that's why, seeing this come out of stealth today, I was like, okay, this is very cool. This is very exciting. And there's going to be an SDK that they release out there for developers to play around with and I guess kind of get used to. And this is basically a direct challenge to the Cosmos ecosystem, because the Cosmos SDK SDK stands for Software Development Kit. It's basically a kit that developers can use to build their own Cosmos sovereign, app chains. Technically, it doesn't really have anything to do with Cosmos. They can connect to Cosmos if they want to, but usually it's a standalone chain that people build, something like Canto. You may have heard of that one. It's basically a layer 1 blockchain. And the reason people do this is because the Cosmos SDK allows them to do this, allows them to spin this up all relatively easily. Now, as it currently exists, there isn't something like that for rollups right now, but there are going to be. As I mentioned, 2 projects already. I think there's more than the Stacker Network, the optimistic chains. I believe there's going to be more than that, and there are actually more. I can't remember the names of the other projects, but now that there is Sovereign as well. So this area is going to heat up, because I think as more and more time progresses, as layer 2s on Ethereum become more and more popular and get more and more adoption, people are willing to fund these new, rollups and layer 2 teams in a really big way. And then developers are willing to build on this because developers want to build where the activity is, right? They want to build on something that is not going to collapse underneath them, like what happened with Terra. Obviously, it's front of mind for a lot of developers now. They're thinking, okay, well, I want to start my business. I want to build this thing. So where do I build it? I can't build it on Ethereum layer 1 because Ethereum layer 1 isn't very scalable. Gas fees are high. Unfortunately, users are priced out there. Okay, well, how is Ethereum scaling? Well, it's scaling via these rollups. All right, I'm going to go build on an Arbitrum or an Optimism, but then people will say, well, okay, I don't want to build on those because I actually want to create my own app chain. And then they're stumped. After that, they have to basically either talk to one of these teams and get a bespoke solution done, sort of like what some teams have done with Starkware, or hopefully in the very near future, they're going to be able to use one of these platforms, whether it be Stacker Network or Sovereign or an optimistic chain, in order to build their rollup out and have really great certainty and guarantees that it's going to be long lasting, because they can choose where they want to settle their data and their proofs. And obviously, if you want to choose something that has already proven out its success, has a network effect, has all the tooling and everything you need, you would do it on Ethereum. Now, as I said before, it's not just limited to Ethereum. You could use Celestia for data availability, or you could use another solution like EigenLayer, for example, for data availability. But if you are serious about, longevity for your project, Ethereum is the obvious first choice here. And you know what's funny? There was a lot of hype around Celestia last year and even the year before. And I've said this, I believe, on the Refuel, that these things, they tend to get a lot of hype and then they still take a very long time to launch. I don't know when Celestia is going live. I do think that Celestia is a competitor to Ethereum, even though they're only trying to focus on data availability. Ethereum is also focusing on that with dank sharding, right? Even with proto dank sharding. So it is a competitor. So if we can allow people to store their data on Ethereum in a really, really cheap way, then that kind of makes Celestia, I wouldn't say obsolete, but definitely kills a lot of the momentum there for them and brings it into the Ethereum family. Now, I'm not going to give my opinion on whether I think that's a good or bad thing. It's just is, basically. But obviously, I want Ethereum to keep winning. I want Ethereum to be the premier place that these rollups store their data on, store their proofs on, because that, to me, is the most scalable, most secure, and most sustainable way of building rollups. But yeah, anyway, enough on that tangent. You can go check out Sovereign for yourself. There is a blog post, there is a tweet thread. I'm very, very excited about this new project and can't wait to see what they build here. All right, so this one's for the developers out there, or at least anyone who is interested in searching blockchain data, I should say. This is something called Lasso that was introduced today, which is the natural language search engine for blockchain data. You can search the chain, get data, and find alpha in your own words. No SQL or complex smart contract understanding needed. So this is actually for more of the mainstream audience, I should say here, where essentially you can just use natural language, such as what's in this video here, where they ask, who are the top 5 Milady maker holders by wallet value, and then it'll spit that data out for you here. Now, this is currently in early access, and you can sign up at lasso.gg if you are interested in this sorts of stuff. But this is something that I'm definitely interested in, and I have signed up to the early access list here because I am not an, okay, this is taking me back. I did do SQL stuff at university, but I haven't kept up with it at all. I'm nowhere near an SQL expert. I mean, I probably couldn't even do the most basic of things anymore, and I definitely don't know how to code up smart contracts or read them. So having natural language, I guess like processors or search engines for this sort of stuff helps me a lot, and I'm sure it helps the majority of you a lot as well, because it allows you to do things without having to go and learn these, these skills. Now, I'm not saying that learning the skills is bad, but not everyone is going to learn SQL. Not everyone's going to learn smart contract development. I mean, that's me. I'm not going to learn these things, but I would still like to be able to search for things using natural language and be able to dig into things. So that's why I am definitely excited about Lasso here, and I'll link this in the YouTube description for you to go check out as well. All right, so another project that was announced today was something called Axiom, which is a ZK coprocessor for Ethereum. So Axiom provides smart contracts trustless access to all on-chain data and arbitrary expressive compute over it. Like GPUs do for CPUs, Axiom augments blockchain consensus with zero-knowledge proofs. You know, I find it funnier and funnier just how many projects have ZK in their name these days. Some of them justified, a lot of them not. I feel like we're going to have this ZK wave over the next couple of years where we see a lot of these projects end up being funded, but a lot of them actually aren't ZK, and they just throw ZK in there to raise money. They throw ZK in there to get hype, but I don't think Axiom is one of those projects. They definitely are a very cool project here, and they're definitely working with some of the gigabrains like Paradigm, I believe, or at least working off Paradigm's work here, and they have a GitHub that you can go dive into if this is something you're interested in. But this is definitely on the more technical side of things. I haven't fully digested it yet. I just came across it earlier today. I wanted to share it with you guys, but this seems pretty exciting, and some of the smarter people I know are talking about this as well, so I'm curious to see how this all shakes out. But I could also be wrong. I mean, as I said, I'm not up to speed enough. I'm not smart enough to know if this is as legit or as, like living up to the hype as they're hyping it up here. But I'm going to keep an eye on it, and you probably will want to as well. So definitely go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so to round us off for today, I put out a tweet out, and I wanted to talk a bit about this, so I've left a bit of time here, where I said, the layer 1 wars over the years have been incredibly boring and noisy, mostly a waste of time and energy. The layer 2/rollup wars are going to be much more fun, and I've already learned a lot from watching the debates play out on Twitter over the last 6 to 12 months. Now, this tweet was spurred on by the things I was talking about yesterday, where Stephen Goldfeder from the Arbitrum team put out a tweet thread about how he thinks ZK EVM stuff is essentially overhyped, right? Or I guess it's overpromising a lot of things, and why he's still very bullish on optimistic rollups. And there are a lot of debates that happen because of this. But these aren't the only debates. There are so many debates going on all the time when it comes to layer 2s and rollups. Now, the reason why I think that the layer 1 wars have been boring and noisy and a waste of time and energy is because most of them, if not the majority, if not pretty much all of them, never really optimized for the right thing. They always went after the cheaper and more scalable angle, obviously obfuscating the fact that they achieved that by sacrificing decentralization and becoming very unsustainable from an economics point of view. But for me personally, all of that was very boring. Like, I looked at these layer 1s. I'm like, okay, what are you doing that's actually novel here? What are you doing that's getting us from a 0 to 1 moment that Ethereum was to Bitcoin? Because I think the reason why most people got excited, or all the people got excited about Ethereum in the early days, was because it was a massive step up above Bitcoin. It wasn't just forking Bitcoin like what Litecoin did or what Dogecoin did, and slapping a different supply on it, a different hashing algorithm or whatever else. It was literally a massive paradigm shift, a 0 to 1 for blockchain technology. Now, have we had anything since then in the layer 1, I guess, arena? I don't think so. You can point to some of the most popular layer 1s out there. I mean, the funny thing is the most popular layer 1 besides Ethereum is actually Binance Smart Chain, which is literally just Ethereum. But of the non-Ethereum forks and the non-EVM chains, I think it's safe to say that Solana is probably, at least in terms of the noise that the Solana community makes, the next one in the running there. But have they actually done anything that's done a 0 to 1 moment for blockchains? I don't think so. They are, I guess, or they can process more TPS and they can process more transactions than Ethereum layer 1 can, but they sacrifice decentralization to do that, as you guys know. But at the end of the day, like, that's still not 0 to 1. Okay, cool. You can do transactions cheaper than Ethereum, and I'm not going to get into why those transactions are actually not equal to begin with, but let's, for the sake of argument, just say that to me isn't cool. It's not innovative. It's not something that's 0 to 1. It's not something that actually pushes the industry forward. And then people will say, well, Solana has this unique consensus mechanism. It has like this really fast finality, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. But that is, again, not a 0 to 1 moment for me. The Solana consensus mechanism is nowhere near as interesting as what Ethereum did with proof of stake, with the Ethereum proof of stake mechanism. It has a lot less moving parts to Ethereum as Ethereum proof of stake. It actually works very differently, and at the end of the day, it's still DPoS, right? Delegated proof of stake, which I find very, very boring, right? So that's just one example there. But then all these other layer 1s, besides, I guess, like the more scalable and lower fees things, they do tend to talk about their new consensus that they have that's supposed to be more secure, or they'll talk about the fact that they've got a new smart contract language that people can use to instead of Solidity, and all these other things that I still don't consider a 0 to 1 innovation. Now, okay, in saying all of that, what do I consider 0 to 1 in the blockchain space? There's only really been one other thing, and it's ZK stuff, right? I know I just went on about how ZK has a lot of hype behind it right now, and it's gonna be pretty overhyped for years to come. But zero knowledge stuff, not just when it comes to scalability, but also privacy, is a 0 to 1 leap in blockchain, right? And where did that happen? Well, that happened on Ethereum, right? Like it, and so did DeFi, which I consider to be 0 to 1 as well. So when looking at all this stuff, why would I look at the other layer 1s? Why would I study them? Why would I spend time there if at the end of the day, they all boil down to being just very, very boring? They're not doing any innovative stuff. They may have some apps on there that are doing innovative stuff, but I'm talking about the chains themselves, not the apps. The apps, at the end of the day, pretty much all the apps are going to be multi-chain anyway, so it doesn't really matter if the app is on Solana first and then comes over to Ethereum later. Or comes over to an Ethereum layer 2 later. I more focus on the actual chains themselves. And for me, the only 0 to 1 over the last few years in the blockchain space has been zero knowledge technology. Now, what do and zero knowledge technology, what has it enabled? Well, not only has it enabled things like ZK rollups, which are obviously very scalable and very secure, but it's also enabled privacy via things like Aztec network, right? It's also enabled privacy via things like Tornado Cash, and it has become so disruptive that the US government thought it prudent to put sanctions on Tornado Cash because it was so effective at doing what it was saying it was going to do, which was mixing funds, right? And then Aztec Network has been really effective with being able to tap into layer 1 liquidity and do layer 2 private transactions. And then obviously all the ZK rollups and ZK VMs and stuff like that have become very popular and have become very hyped up because it's very cool to be able to do something like that and settle back to Ethereum layer 1. So that's why I put this out here. And that was the context around this tweet. Now, you can disagree with me if you want. Maybe something in the layer 1 space is cool to you and you consider it to be 0 to 1. But me personally, I have not seen anything. And I have studied all the other layer 1s. Believe me, I have actually looked at them. I don't just say this stuff because people consider me an ETH maxi or whatever. I have actually studied them. I've looked for something that has been a 0 to 1 moment. and I just didn't find it. Now, maybe I should define what 0 to 1 is. Basically, 0 to 1 is another way of saying paradigm shift, where the current paradigm is shifted so much that it creates a new paradigm that people hadn't really thought of before, and it opens up a new world of possibilities. We had that with Ethereum when it first came out. Obviously, it opened up a world of absolutely amazing and massive new possibilities that Bitcoin didn't enable. And now we have that with ZK Tech as well, slash layer 2s generally, because that opens up another whole world of things that weren't possible before, where you can have a super scalable chain that is secured by a super secure chain like Ethereum and can inherit those properties and still be compatible with the parent chain via EVM compatibility and things like that. But anyway, on that note, I'm going to end it there for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.